Hello and welcome to Sex, Psychics, and Psychedelics. Today I'm going to be talking about Reiki and the practical magic of feeling felt. Reiki is this practice of universal love, of being held in universal love. I mean, it sounds pretty great, but to be honest, I've never really understood it. I've seen increasing number of people around me receiving Reiki or becoming Reiki masters, and I've heard that it's now available in hospitals. Universal love, folks, has been entering mainstream healthcare. Who knew? So I was out in the desert a few weeks ago and I met this Reiki master who was giving a meditation, a Reiki meditation out at these beautiful hot springs called Two Bunch Palms. And the whole thing felt rather magical and also super practical. It seems with this stuff you just have to receive, but of course somebody has to give, and it's either hands on or hands off. And we're going to learn more about it today because it seems like this could be an amazing hack. If we can get our hands on universal love, y'all, I mean, what can't we do together? Welcome, Kia. Thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you? How is it to be a Reiki practitioner in today's world?
It is beautiful. I mean, it's such a centering practice amidst all the craziness we're living in right now. So very grateful for it. Absolutely.
Amazing, amazing. And before you became a Reiki teacher, you were doing what?
I was a visual effects production manager or line producer. So complete change.
I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very organized type A person. Definitely resonate with the shadow artist ideal. I don't know if you've read The Artist Way, the classic.
Yes, a long time ago I did. Yes, yes. What's the shadow artist?
I mean, the idea is we're all artists, right? Like we all have creative magic to put into the world, but I think so many of us, or speaking for myself, but that's the theory presented in the book, are scared to live in it. And so put yourself in situations where you're adjacent to the people doing the creative work. And that definitely resonated so strongly for me in the early days of my career because I love story. That's something that always like really, really lights me up. And it's been such a beautiful part of my Reiki journey too, is connecting with my own story really and figuring out how it can heal me and how I can use it to help heal the people around me. But that's a long way to say I wanted to work in film because that's a beautiful way to tell stories, and ended up in visual effects because of where I was living. It was a big industry there, and worked in it for 8 years doing that. So production, essentially helping the creatives get their work done on time and on budget.
And how did you run into Reiki?
It really felt so serendipitous. Like it kind of presented itself to me. I can't think of a specific person ever talking to me about Reiki. I think maybe when I was a kid, my mom had gone for a session once and I had been along with her. And I don't even know, honestly, if it was Reiki or a different type of energy work, but I had remembered being present for it and feeling a lot going on, but not really understanding. And many, many years later, I was dealing with chronic issues in my own body that I had gone to see multiple people for. Specifically, I had issues with my sinuses, so I had gone to see a ear, nose, and throat specialist. I'd gone to see an allergist, my GP, and the allergy test came back saying I was allergic to all things green, every leaf, tree, and plant. And I just, like, that's just not true. Like, maybe I get a little sniffly or my eyes itch, but it's not stopping my breathing because I pay attention to how my body fluctuates. And, but yeah, just to say that I was having these difficulties. My breathing was so constricted and it was really uncomfortable. I think they gave me medications. I had a little steroid spray and it was giving me nosebleeds and wasn't making anything better. And I felt so stuck in it because I didn't have this condition forever. It appeared in my early 20s. So if it came from I knew it came from somewhere, and it just didn't work for me that people were saying this is just how you are and you're stuck like that forever. So all that to say is I started looking into alternatives, and Reiki was something that kept popping up, and somewhere in the back of my mind I felt a connection to it. And so literally just Googled Reiki practitioners in Montreal, which is where I was living at the time. And there was one woman who I kept coming back to and decided to book a session with her. And I went for that healing. And it was That first session was really just such a deep relaxation, which is often what it is for people when they're coming into it in the early days. It's just a really beautiful time to connect with your body and to just be in stillness, which we really don't do often in our busy lives and in this busy world.
I guess we should just take this minute. I know we're going to dive more into what it is, but just for people who are listening, the kind of Reiki you were receiving was like hands-off energy work, would you say?
Yeah, so the woman I went to see that first time actually ended up becoming my teacher later down the line. So the system that she and I both work in is stems from the Usui Ryohu system of Reiki, which traces back to Mikao Usui. He's kind of the forefather of Reiki, the way most people know it in the world today. And the specific system that we are Reiki masters in is called Holy Fire 3 World Peace Reiki, which was introduced by a man called William Lee Rand. And he kind of he's been really expansive in making Reiki mainstream. And his system, the Holy Fire system, is really really powerful. It's such a beautiful way to work.
But this was your first introduction to this hands-off energy practice?
Yes, correct. She did not put her hands on my body, and when I practice, I do the same because I think that is such a beautiful experience for people to have and such an empowering one to know that these energies exist around and within you regardless of the contact you're making with someone else. So the Reiki practitioner is really acting as an antenna or a channel for these life force energies that exist around. So maybe it makes sense for me to explain what Reiki is as we segue into. It is a healing modality, obviously. It's energy work. So we are working with this life force energy that exists in all things. So the word Reiki means spiritually guided life force energy. It comes from the Japanese kanji, which I encourage all of you to look up the symbol because it really is a fun one to
spell it.
Kanji, but if you look up Reiki symbol, it'll appear. But all of the images have their own significations because the kanji are based on pictograms in their original form. They've evolved, but to me, when I look at it, it looks like a happy guy. Like it really is just such a beautiful light energy. That stands to mean that Reiki has an intelligence of its own. It goes where it needs to go, and it's always doing the work it needs to do when you call it in. Ki is that life force energy. Words in parallel to help contextualize would be prana, like you hear in yoga, chi, like the points they work with in acupuncture or the energies in Tai Chi, holy fire, baraka. All of these are different words for the same animating force that exists in all things. And I think almost all types of energy work with a version of ki. This life force energy is always in play when people are doing energy work. What sets Reiki apart is that spiritually guided aspect. So any Reiki practitioner can call Reiki in and it is always going to go where it needs to go, regardless of their level of training. So of course, every person has different gifts that they bring, and the way they interpret those energies and share them with the people they're working with will shift. But if you are going for a Reiki session from someone who has been attuned to Reiki, you are going to receive those Reiki energies. Reiki works on all of our bodies, so our physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, working to bring things back into alignment, releasing stagnant energies and bringing in healthy ones so that we can be in good flow. And it helps to regulate your mind, which is so powerful in regulating your body. Because when our mind is at peace and our energy centers are in good flow, the natural healing mechanisms kick in by default, right? It's like when you're getting good rest, you feel better. When you're running around crazy thinking about millions of things, you get sick. I'm not a scientist, so I can't give you the logic behind it, but I can give you what I've seen in myself and in the people that I've worked with. It's really such a powerful way to tune back in and just start listening to yourself more. I think that is really one of the key fundamental things I found in practicing Reiki is that you get better at listening and trusting the things you hear.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, it makes sense to me as a therapist. Some of my process is intuitive, right? There's a listening aspect. So there's the just really just attending to the person that you're working with, and that could be on a Zoom, or it could be on the phone, or it could be, in person. So that bit I understand. I think, Reiki is so much more free in a way than what I do, because you're largely taking the words out. You're not putting hands on. And so it's a bit mysterious, this idea of like, what is being framed? Are we framing attention? Are we calling in a magic spell? Is it something placebo? I mean, I don't care as long as it works, but I am interested as a and also beyond that, because my personal sort of mission, or one strand of my mission, is to help people access their own healing, and healing that they don't have to pay for. And so I'm wondering, as a very, 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 very newbie to Reiki, as you know, because I just did a session with you, I'm wondering, can we all do it? And can we do it on ourselves? So I know I've thrown a lot at you there. So let's just start with the role of the practitioner and what the practitioner is doing to invite in, help in, facilitate this wonderful version of life energy.
Beautiful. So like I was saying before, the practitioner is, I mean, first and foremost, I would say a space holder. Like, you're someone who is here holding space for the person that's with you, because I think that's such a fundamental part in any healing modality, is just being somewhere where you feel safe and you feel heard and you feel seen, and wherever you are. And I think that's the idea of fixing gets thrown a lot. And I really think it's important to throw that away, because there's nothing to fix. We all are where we are. There's healing to do, and there's always going to be healing to do, whether you do Reiki 5 hours a day every day, or you do it once every 3 months, or whatever your practice is you go to. But the practitioner is a space holder, someone who's here giving you the space to explore the things in you that are ready to be dealt with. And in terms of the energies we're working with, when you've been attuned to Reiki, you call these energies in, and as soon as you call them, they flow. It really is as simple as that. And I know you gave me one question at a time, but the answer is yes, anybody can do Reiki. And that's another wonderful part. Like, that's the more Reiki practitioners we have in the world, the better the world is going to be. It's as simple as that. It is supposed to be easy, and it is supposed to be accessible. And there is a cost associated with it, because we have to survive, but it shouldn't be something prohibitive. And that's something that I'm so committed to making work in my practice, is I never want to turn someone away. So anybody who wants to learn or who wants to receive will find a way to make it work that is comfortable for both of us, so that we can all survive, but also spread this healing that we need to receive.
Okay, I just felt your Reiki right there. Did I say that right? You just Reiki'd me with those words. I feel so Reiki right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I do. I think, okay, so I want to circle back to you're receiving this Reiki for the first time, I think, and you have these sinus conditions. And are you thinking, this is not going to work because no one's actually touched me? Or are you thinking, like, let's go for this? Are you in with your mind?
Definitely in with my mind, because although I've never been, or I was never like in any regular spiritual practice, I've always felt connected. I'm a sensitive person, and I've always believed in more than whatever is here. So I was all for it, but I didn't really have expectations. At that point, I was just pretty desperate. I was like, I'm sick of feeling bad, and hopefully this person can help me. And she did. I left, and my sinuses were clear. For the first time in 4 years, I could breathe, and it didn't last. They cleared for the moment, but it was what I needed to trust that there was hope. And she made as well, I can't remember if it was in the first session or maybe a subsequent one, but she was also the first person who really made the mind-body connection for me. She had a book she shared that showed me the parts of the body where I was feeling ailments and emotional associations. And not every single one resonated, but it was enough to get me thinking and to help me start moving in the direction. And it was just so empowering to know there are things I can do, and this is something that maybe I've created in myself, so that means that I can correct it as well.
When you were in the session, were you making connections like, oh, I have grief and it's gotten lodged in my sinuses, or, was it like that? No,
not at the beginning. Not at all. I just felt relaxed, and I'm the type of person, at least where I am at this point in my path, I feel things a lot in my body. And at the beginning, I didn't really know that meant anything. I thought I just had weird feelings in my body. And it's been a process learning that, no, those are all messages. And so now I've learned to start associating those sensations I receive with other things, or if I don't know right away, I sit with it, and the answer always comes. So the short answer is no. In that first one, it was just relief was what I felt more than anything. which is what I needed in the moment. And that's another thing I love so much about Reiki is it's always what you need in the moment. Even if it doesn't feel like it right away, it's always giving you what you need for where you are now.
This brings up a really random, ridiculous story I want to share with you. So when you and I did our Reiki session last week, I don't know if you were aware that I got up in the middle of the session, but you couldn't see me, and I know your eyes were closed, and I was next to you. So I was lying on the floor in my office. I had my phone next to me. You were on the phone holding the Reiki. I don't know if it's holding the Reiki, doing the Reiki. And I suddenly got super hungry, like super hungry. And I kept thinking, I want to eat a banana. And I have a banana downstairs. And I'm thinking, am I allowed to I know you're supposed to lie still. Like, how bad is it? How much am I interrupting the session if I go and give myself a banana? And I did this like whole debate in my head about whether I'm allowed to eat a banana. So ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, Jane, enough. And so I just like tiptoe downstairs. I eat the banana. I come back upstairs and I lie back down. And I'm like, God, it's so funny that I think that like I may be in trouble with the Reiki master.
No. That's so funny. I did not notice that you got up. You were very
I was
stealth.
very stealth with my banana mission.
But no, that's a good thing to bring up because that's, I think another thing that makes it so accessible is like there's no breaking a Reiki session. If you are open to receiving it and I'm sending, you're going to be getting what you need. When you are in that quiet space, that still space with the eyes covered, with your music blocking out any distractions, you're more receptive, so you're more available to receive whatever might be coming in on your side. So I think the only thing you're taking away is that the openness of that channel, but the healing is still coming through. So,
maybe the healing was saying, have a banana.
Totally, yeah. It's like trust where you are.
That's kind of what I got to eventually. Around the banana saga. Yeah, so I guess it seems like trust is a huge part of it.
Absolutely.
And tell me about your journey with that, if you can put words to it.
For sure. I mean, I'm still on it. It's ever evolving, but I think comparison is something that I'm pretty sure all of us struggle with. You know, there's so many people out there offering so many things, and when you step into a practice like this, I think your intuition is something, at least for me, I didn't really have a relationship with it until I started diving into my Reiki. Like, it was there and I worked with it, but I didn't work with it in a conscious way. And learning, first of all, how I receive information was the first step in that, because some people hear things, some people see things, some people feel them in their body, some people have all of those, and some people it's really just like a knowing comes in. And for me, most of the time, it's a knowing or a sensation in my body, which are some of the least defined, if you will. Or at least for me, when I hear someone being psychic, I'm like, okay, I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to see a vision of everything that's happening, and that's what it means to be intuitive. And so it has been such a beautiful homecoming, I guess, in recognizing that there's not one way to receive, and all of them are equally powerful. And I think the more you sit with what you have now, the more the other bits will unfold and develop. It's not a one-stop shop. And in terms of building that trust relationship, like listening to your heart is something I say a lot in my teaching, in my sessions, in my practices, because that's kind of the filter for where everything comes through. And every time there's been something that I have felt strongly in my heart is what I need to be doing to honor the path I'm on, to move in alignment, universe has presented things in support of that in such tangible ways. So even when I'm feeling my most unmoored or unsettled or scared because things are not as typically structured or stable as they were before, a little crumb will come that says, you're doing the right thing. I think that's been the biggest trust builder for me, and recognizing when those gifts come around. Like, this is such a little example, but I think it's a good one. Is like when I first moved here, I was living with my sister, which has been like the most beautiful experience to have that time with her and her kids, because we were apart for many years. I was living abroad. But it's a household with 5 people, 3 of whom are teenagers, who I love with my whole heart, but I was ready for my own space after a couple of months being there. And before I had even voiced it aloud, And on the side of that, I was feeling pretty, I mean, LA is a big city. It's an expensive city. I really didn't know like how I was going to get on my feet. I've had a lot of life changes since moving here. I'm really starting from scratch, which is scary, but also so liberating and so beautiful. So all that to say, the thought appeared in my head, I think I'm ready. And literally that same week, her friend came into town and had an apartment that they had been sitting on for 2 years that had been unused. And they said, I'm looking for someone, if you know. And I'm living here. That's where I'm interviewing you from, right, or with you from right now. I'm sitting in that space. I don't know if you're familiar with the tarot at all. I'm not.
Very, yes.
Okay, beautiful. Like, I'm not a professional reader, but I use them a lot for myself because that's been another great trust builder, just to have a concrete thing, like a tangible thing to work with in practicing the intuition.
Tarot is only concrete if you're a Reiki practitioner.
I guess concrete in the sense that, like, you're not closing your eyes and imagining.
I know what you mean. It was just a funny
to look at, but yes, I hear you. But the Fool card is like about new beginnings and taking leaps, and that's really like that was I guess 2023 into 24. That's what this year felt like. And someone said for that card, like when you take that fool's leap, when you jump off that cliff and trust, like there's always a safety net to catch you. The way down might feel scary, but there'll always be that soft land.
They don't show you that on the card, but they do incentivize you by showing you how sunny and happy the fool looks as he's about to fall off the cliff. Yeah, it's one of my favorite cards of all time. I'm big on the unlearning, and I do think that the path of heart is a unlearning path because we are kind of indoctrinated more in the mind, or have been typically. I do think it's changing now, and I think we're part of that as this sort of this healing movement. It is about getting back to the heart. Now, when I check in with my heart, it tends to come online in terms of visuals. I say, how are you, heart? And it will show me a picture or something like that. I don't know if it's the heart showing me a picture or my mind showing me a picture of my heart, but that's what happens. I get a picture, and it always feels right because it's just an expression, really. That's the way I see it. So for you, when you get a message from your heart, how is it?
Oh, it's so funny. I talk about this all the time and no one's ever asked me that. I have to think about what that really means. But I think
I want you to think.
Yeah.
With your heart.
I mean, I say I have to think, but I know already. It's in my body and it's knowings. Like I'll have, if it's something I don't want to do, I'll have immediate contractions, like literal shoulders will scrunch up, chest will get smaller, jaw will clench. I'll feel it in my body more than anything.
Yes, that makes sense. And then also, would it be an expansion?
Yeah.
Yes, it's an expansion. Yeah.
It's like the wings are spreading, you can just sink into it.
Yeah. I do think that that's a beautiful process that we can all learn, which is slowing down enough that we can feel whether the energy is closing around an idea or opening around an idea. And it's always there. It's just sometimes very sort of subtle.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to recognize too, like when you are following that expansive path and doing the things your heart is calling you towards, like it can be really scary and it can be really unsettling. And at least in my experience, like I know I'm expanding, but then there'll be moments of contraction where the parts of myself who felt safe and secure in the situation I was in before will step out and go, what the heck are you doing? We were good before. What is this? And it's so important to recognize when that part of yourself is coming up and to sit with it and to understand why those reactions are happening and to know that like that's not where you are now, to keep again trusting that.
Right. It's like the protectors in, I don't know if you know IFS, internal family systems, but the resistances are called protectors. They're like characters of protection who want to come up and help you out. It's not really that we're trying to sabotage ourselves, we're just trying to stay safe. So Reiki seems, and I don't know if I'm right about this, but it seems like, as my partner John says, everyone's a Reiki teacher all of a sudden. Is that true?
I mean, like, there are loads of Reiki practitioners out there, and I think the first thing to say there is there's space for everyone, which I like, not that you were saying otherwise, but I want to keep saying it because it's so important. We all have our own flavors to bring to the soup, if you will. But yeah, there are so many because it is an easy process. I say easy because the attunements themselves are straightforward. It's when you get attuned to Reiki, it's essentially like a guided meditation where the Reiki practitioner or master who is doing the attunements is channeling these energies and sending them into you to shift your vibration accordingly so that you can then channel these energies as well. And as you move up in the levels, it's just raising your frequencies higher and higher in accordance to the level that you're working with. I think that is part of like the core mission of Reiki, is to spread this healing energy as far and as wide as it can. So there should be more and more people. And I think the beauty of having so many options is that like you can look around and find the people that you resonate. Because again, the Reiki energy is there, but every person is different and the way you connect to every person is different. So it's so cool to be able to find the ones that feel most aligned with you and where you are.
Absolutely. And I think it's, when I'm in Ojai, which I'm in Ojai part-time, I look around and I'm like, oh my God, everyone here is a psychedelic therapist. Like everyone here is a psychedelic therapist. How can this be? Like, how are we all surviving when everyone is a psychedelic therapist? Somehow we do. And it may be the same with Reiki. And I do think that, there are bigger movements at play than we can perhaps see. If we were looking down on ourselves like you look down on fish when you're snorkeling, you see movements of shoals of fish going this way and that. And it may be that, the movement of Reiki, like the movement of psychedelic therapy, like the movements of sexual healing, just happening. And that they're spreading wider than we can see. And I am pretty excited about it. As you know, I definitely want to do your course and become certified. And I love the idea that if I'm certified, then I can teach other people, and then we can all just start to relax, maybe.
I want as many people to have this. And I think also I'd like to say that like getting attuned to Reiki is open and available to everyone, which we've already said, but it doesn't mean that you need to then go be a Reiki practitioner and have a Reiki practice. You can, absolutely, but it's something that is so healing for the self and will have ripple effects on the people around you, regardless of how you choose to use it. And I think you asked me earlier if you can use Reiki on yourself. You can. You can use Reiki on anything. You can use it on yourself. You can use it on other people. I Reiki my plants sometimes. It works on animals. You can send Reiki to the world. You can send Reiki wherever.
So can you teach us the most basic step of Reiki, how to do Reiki?
I mean, the most basic step is you say, I'm calling Reiki in to use right now, but
you say it aloud, or can you say it in your head?
In your head is totally fine.
I'm calling Reiki in to use right now.
Yeah, but that works when you've been attuned. So there are some people, mayhaps, who have been born, but it really is a frequency shift. So once to use specifically Reiki, you need to have the attunements. But that doesn't mean that you can't work with energy on your own. So if you wanted to start getting in touch with whatever that flow is in yourself, I think sitting in a quiet space and just centering yourself, like maybe put your hands on your heart or in your lap open, wherever it feels good, and just take a few deep breaths and come into your body and sit with your hands, like literally just hold your hands together and start imagining that there's energy sitting in between your palms and see what you feel there.
So not closing the palms, holding them separate?
I like to keep them separate because then you can feel what's happening in between.
I notice that you're relaxing your palms.
Yeah, I didn't even realize I was doing that, but it's a natural one. Yeah, just because it feels better for me.
Yeah, it's almost more like a ball of energy, isn't it?
That's how I visualize it. Yeah. And I think when you learn the traditional Reiki systems, we have hand positions and there are formal structures that you learn at the beginning, but without any disrespect to the traditions, I think for me, as I've been practicing more and more, I remember those foundations and I still use them when it feels good, but I also trust in what feels natural and allow myself to just work with the energies in the way that feel good and comfortable. Mm-hmm. I think in the early days, it's nice to have those structures because it gives you something to work with in a clearly defined way, but to also allow yourself to experiment.
When you say you need the attunement, what is the attunement?
So that's what they call the process when your body vibrations are calibrated to receive the Reiki, or to call in the Reiki energies, if you will. So in each Reiki level, we have different attunements. In Reiki 1, you get attuned to be a channel for Reiki. In the second level, there's a number of special symbols that you'll be attuned to that all have their own meanings, they're sacred symbols that have been received from God, guides, the beyond, whatever word you want. So those are meant to be kept secret until you are attuned. they are available on the internet because nothing is kept secret anymore, but I will not be sharing them out of respect for
That's
those
fine.
rules.
Can you tell me about the first step, the attunement, how that happens? How do you
Uh,
get attuned? Is that somebody intending it for you, or is this something more literal than that?
it would be so it is formatted like a meditation. You would be in a space with your Reiki master who's teaching you. They'll do the guided meditation to begin, and then they'll be calling Reiki in with the intention of
Giving
offering
it
you
to you. I
teaching,
see.
of
So
giving it to you. So it's the
one
intention.
Reiki master will tune up another. It's a mentorship kind of process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the process itself, it takes maybe 20 minutes, half an hour for that attunement to take place. But then the Reiki teacher is there in support as you begin learning and exploring with these energies. But the attunement happens and you can call Reiki in, and it really is that simple.
It's really interesting. It's like an oral tradition, but it's non-oral.
Yeah.
I suppose it's a wisdom tradition.
Yeah, it's spiritual, really.
It's a
And
spiritual tradition.
in
Yeah.
its early form too, it was all hands on. Like the attunements, it's like any organic thing, it's evolved and grown to fit the needs of where we are. So in its original form with Master Usui, you would sit down and the hands would be on the body, and it was hours long. It was a really long process to get it where it needs to be and where we are. And now you don't need contact. Some people do it online as well, like that is possible. I mean, we did our session virtual, so you experienced the way that works. For now, I'm doing all of my teaching in person just because I like having that community space, but it's not less to do it online. It's just different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it's the same thing as a therapist and an EMDR practitioner. You know, we all just EMDR started being something that existed online, and it worked. Miracle of miracles. So, okay, so I'm interested in Master Usui, and am I saying his name right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because he was the originator, and when was that? How long ago was that?
So he received Reiki in 1922.
Okay, so it's pretty much 100 years of Reiki. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry. I
that's
do want
okay.
to add though too
Yeah.
that Reiki existed before
Oh, okay.
Master Usui. So there were a few other people in Japan who were practicing a system that they did call Reiki. Ryoho Reiki was their system, and when Usui received his version, he added Usui Ryoho to the name. But I mean, similar to the way William Lee Rand's Holy Fire was a kind of upgrade to the energies. When Usui received his, it was a shift in the way the energies were used, and he's the one who really began spreading it in a more mainstream way and opened clinics all over Japan and really was working to heal people with it and to build communities around it.
So there were clinics just designated for Reiki, and does that still
Yeah.
exist?
That is actually a good question that I don't know the answer to. I've never heard of a specific Reiki clinic, though William Lee Rand has a lot of Reiki, like he's got a wide web of Reiki networks throughout the US. So I've not worked directly with him, but he's written all the manuals that I originally learned with, and he's got a ton of resources I would recommend checking if you're
Okay, well,
interested.
yeah, I'm definitely interested because I think you and I, as a side project, should start a Reiki clinic
I love that
in Los
idea.
Angeles. Or maybe out in the desert, maybe by the hot springs. That might be better. It would
Oh,
make our work even easier.
yeah. I mean, I have so
Passive
many.
healing, yeah.
Love it. So many ideas that have been, like we said, swirling around that I'm ready to start bringing into the world in
That's
2025.
it's so great. I'm so happy that we found each other. I did feel that your energy was terrifically fresh, which is something that I think is so important as we go through these changes. We're all going through such massive changes at the moment in our world at large. And, how are we going to reinvent if we can't find fresh source energy and tap into that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's here for all of us. And I actually want to, you were asking my journey of trust. Like you were a big part of that,
Oh,
honestly. I've been talking about my sinuses. What that all circles back to is the voice and expression and embracing your power and bringing it out into the world, if you will.
I'm so happy.
Yeah,
Yay. Here
teaching those
you are
classes.
speaking, right? And I mean, that's what
Huge.
you were doing when I met you. You were already speaking and now you're speaking even more. And it's going to
Thank
just
you
keep on
for
going.
hearing me and seeing me and giving me this opportunity. I
Uh,
mean, It's
What
so
a
beautiful to be able to help each other. That's the point.
Absolutely. What a pleasure. What a pleasure. It's really wonderful, and that's what this podcast is about, is us, joining forces. And I do think being a healer can be such a lonely process, a beautiful process, but a lonely process. And in a way, being a healer is being a voyager and a discoverer and being at the edges of things. And to me, that's a very beautiful kind of motif, and there's so much love in it, and yet we can also not necessarily be in as optimal communities as would be optimal. And so yes, this is my attempt to try and kind of like build that web. And I don't know quite how to, but I think, how does a spider do it?
One strand at a time.
Project out from that third eye fiercely. Yeah, so that was interesting in our session. I hadn't realized we were going to be, because there was some third eye unblocking in our session, and we had this session in silence as I was silently eating the banana. And then afterwards you gave me feedback, and the way that you gave me feedback is you talked through the chakras. So that was interesting for me. I mean, everything that you said really resonated. Some of the images that we had were kind of the same. My experience and your experience lined up, which was interesting to me and definitely, validated the process. But in terms of the chakra, how does that work? When you're doing Reiki, do you have a system where you're like, I'm going to check in with her root chakra, and do you go up through the chakras methodically, or do you just do overview?
Yeah, so in the session we did the chakra realignment, which I think all of the offerings I have are working with the same energies underneath. It's kind of the intention around them that shifts. And in the chakra alignment, I am doing exactly as you described. So I'll do a tune in before to kind of just ask, what should I be aware of in terms of how Jane's chakras are flowing today to be of greatest use in this session? And then as we're working, once you're on the table or in your comfortable space, if you're distant, I start at the crown and work my way down. And it's as simple as saying, I'm connecting right now to Jane's crown. Please send her what she needs. And then I feel the energies moving in or out and receive whatever is coming through. And Reiki's doing what it needs to do at the same time.
I don't know. I'm feeling pretty tip-top since our session, I have to say.
I'm so happy to hear that. It's really, yeah, it's powerful stuff. Like
It's
it really does
really
the job.
good. It's really good for someone like me who is a mentalist, and I love connecting dots and all these worlds of information. And you can still do that no matter what. You can connect dots on a blank sheet of paper, right? But especially there. But Reiki just doesn't. It's kind of no nonsense in that way, because who cares? Like I could say to you, I experienced this, and you could say I experienced that, and it would be nice. But it's not really the thing. Mm-hmm. It's not the interpretation. It's not the feedback. It's kind of the session itself. And like, you can come out of a therapy session and have this thing, like a piece of treasure, like a takeaway. My therapist said this, and I connected the dots around this. And that could really serve you. And it could disserve you. It could serve you 1 minute and not another, right? 1 minute, it's great to be able to... Those are my father issues playing out in my relationship, That could be great, but it can also be a bind. You could bang on about your father issues in every relationship that you have. I've never done that myself, of course, but I'm just talking about like a friend, somebody else I know who does that. No, so yeah, I think, that's something I've been looking at in therapy for a long time, is sort of the power of interpretation, the power of giving somebody words, and the problem of giving somebody words.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like you bring up father issues. I think most, like everyone has issues with their parents to some degree, no matter how loving and great they were. And I think when we give it that framework of I have daddy issues, you just blame everything on that sometimes, and you don't take time to sit with like, well, let's go revisit some moments where those issues may have come from and see what comes up in me and how I'm reacting to it, and what in those instances I need to sit with and what I'm ready to let go of. And I think working with things like Reiki is a beautiful way to create that space to be able to just sit in things and to connect with them. And again, coming from someone who's got really active minds, sometimes it's hard. And the first time you can't sit with them. Sometimes you'll just get a flit. And it's trusting like, okay, I saw that moment and I know it's important and I'll come back to it later when I'm ready. But it's just beginning to take space with things and get to know them more and not just say, this is what someone told me I have, you know?
Absolutely. I think Reiki is obviously sort of quite a versatile modality. I mean, it's been accepted into mainstream hospitals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind. I was just reading an article about it.
Yeah, and like it's something I'm definitely interested in exploring for myself, because I think it is just such a beautiful way to help people. And like I said, in its original form with Usui, like it was specifically used for physical healing. His clinics were medical clinics, quote unquote, because they weren't doctors, but people were coming with diseases and physical injuries and being healed through Reiki. It wasn't at that time really focused. I mean, obviously it's a spiritual practice, but the focus was physical work. And in hospitals, I think for the most part, they kind of frame it as a relaxation technique or a mindfulness. They don't necessarily present it as we're coming and working on your energetic bodies to help you heal. But it's the results speak for themselves. Like the practitioners come in and the patients feel better. And so they can't really deny that it's doing something, even if they can't explain what it is it's doing.
It's quite interesting, the sort of unconscious down pegging of relaxation. You know, it's like, but it's just relaxation. And maybe it's just relaxation. But then if we look at relaxation a little closer, wow, relaxation. Like they're like, holy grail.
Well, I don't think anything is just a jest, you know? If it feels important, it is.
I guess what I'm saying is I think it's hugely important. And particularly as you get older. Now, you're younger. As you get older, I'll tell you this, maybe not as you get older as a Reiki practitioner, but stress and just overload from having children, from having jobs, from managing many different levels of reality, particularly if you're somebody who does like to manage different levels of reality. Relaxation is not necessarily an easy thing to get your hands on.
No.
And it restores the body. So it's like such a big thing. But I feel like we belittle it a bit in general in culture, just like relax. I know maybe it's a little synonymous with numbing as well, like Netflix and chill.
Yeah, there's a difference, definitely, between disassociating and taking time to be quiet with yourself. And it's not to say that sometimes what you need is just a Netflix and a relax. There's definitely value to that.
Yeah,
but it's
disassociation has its place.
Yeah. And I think that just makes me think of the idea too, like it's so important. You're saying maybe not if you're a Reiki practitioner, but like healers need healing too. Like you said that already. And it's so easy to get caught up in focusing on helping and forgetting about yourself. So it's no matter where you are in the journey, I think it's an effort to say, I'm just as important as everyone else and need to do what I need to do for myself first so that I can be as available to the people I want to be helping as I can be.
I'm just as important as everyone else. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to write that on my computer.
It's important. I remind myself often because
so sweet. Yeah. No, I think it is very important, and it's balanced.
Absolutely. And I said this is slightly tangential, but also not really. So you were asking way earlier how I got into Reiki, and I do want to mention a healer that I am still active working with. She's been a mentor for me. Her name is Lorena Rossi, and she has a very beautiful system that she received a couple years ago and has been developing called soul mending. So I've been working really closely with her in that. Again, talking about accessibility, she has a free community online gathering that she offers every Monday from 4:30 to 7:30 PST, I think. She's based in Montreal. But I would strongly encourage anyone who's maybe can't afford to do one-on-one work right now or go to group things, who wants a resource, to look into that process, because it really is, it's so powerful. And I think a lot of the stuff I've been we pull in from all of our teachers, right? I think a lot of the flavors that I bring into my practice come from that soul mending system, which really what it's about is reconnecting to heart and finding all the pieces of yourself, like we do in EMDR. they all connect to each other, right? There's no coincidences, but it's finding the fragmented parts of your soul that are ready to come home, all the bits that were hurt in the past that have been tucked away and are holding you back from being your fullest expression. Yeah, she's got this free space. You can work closely with her one-on-one if you want, or in smaller groups, but that Monday meeting is a really lovely way to start exploring the shadow work that is so essential to get fully into the light. You know, you don't have one without the other. And we forget to talk about the dark side because it's scary and uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good a lot of the time, but we need to sit in that part to get to the...
It's a very big yield. You know, working with the shadow has a very big yield. That's what I've noticed over the years, is that I've started to just enjoy it because I always know there's so much good on the other side. And the tighter the contraction, the bigger the expansion on the other side. So, like, the really nasty shadows are just so great to get into. So how would we find that? It would be Googling soul mending? Or...
Yeah, her website is called soulmending.ca.
Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect.
So easy enough.
Thank you. That's a lovely tip.
Yeah, I think it's so beautiful to have these community spaces that are 100% accessible. It's rare these days.
It is rare, absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about Reiki itself?
I mean, the metaphor I always like to give in my classes, which I'll bring up now, is like it really, for me, has just felt like the most beautiful soul gardener. I think it's such a slow process, but you start with that little seed that we all have, and the more you work with this light and this energy, the more it feeds that little seed and it starts to grow. And it's sometimes you don't even notice that the changes are happening. Sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's dramatic. And it just like I feel like my little flower is just starting to bloom, you know, just at the very early days. And I'm 3 years into practicing. So I would just like to remind people that it's not an overnight thing, you know, it's a process. And if you want to go every once in a while for a session just to have the refresh, and that's where you are right now, that's totally acceptable. And if you want to dive deep and do all of your attunements and become a practitioner, that's amazing too. I feel like my brain is all scattered, but really just to say, like, there's no wrong way to approach Reiki. I think whatever feels right for where you are now is the right way to do it, and to trust that, and to not be afraid that you're not enough, because there's no such thing. It's like it's available and open to all of us in whatever way we want it, whether that's to receive or to give or to do both.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions and then where to find you. The first question is, if you have a wish for yourself as a Reiki practitioner, what would it be?
I think my wish for myself as a Reiki practitioner would be to really step into all of the things that are living in my head and bring them into the world, and to not be afraid. And it's hard to say that when you're in it, because, you know, you don't want to sound like I'm not enough, I'm not here, whatever it is, but I'm human and we all have that. So to really just trust that the ideas I have, there it is again, are worth bringing to the world, and that the world needs them, and that everyone around me knows that too, because I think that is the message, is like we all are here for a purpose and a reason. So that I can trust myself to bring my gifts out and to help as many people as I can around me to find that as well. I think that's really what my goal is in sharing Reiki, is to help everyone come home to heart and to bring that out into the world, because we need it.
Well, I see and feel your beautiful facilitation, and that calls for celebration. So the next question is, if your heart had a party, what would it look like? Feel like, sound like?
It would be outside for sure. Maybe like beach jungle mix, dancing under the sun into the moonlight, amazing music, amazing food, surrounded by people.
What are we eating at your party? I'm inviting myself. It sounds really good, so I'm there.
I mean, both of my sisters are incredible chefs, so I would put them to the work. They could make whatever they were feeling. Lots of saucy foods, some fruits.
Yeah, I hope they're listening to this and taking notes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I am blessed with the cooking family. Yeah, I don't know. Just
I
all
like
things
it.
Delicious.
Jungle beach feast.
Jungle beach, dancing music.
What kind of music are we dancing to?
My music taste is so eclectic, but I love
just like loads of crazy shit.
I love electronic. I love cumbia. I love Afro beats. I love
Okay, I
all of
like
it.
it.
Anything that makes you move without thinking about it.
Okay,
I think
great. Well,
that's more
you're
fun.
definitely coming to our next heart party. Get ready, get ready.
Wonderful. I can't wait.
And thank you so much for today. And can you let us know how we can find you?
Yeah, I have a website. It's illumnarhealing at Gmail. That's my email. Sorry.
All good.
illumnarhealing.com. So ILUMNAR healing. That's the best way to find me. I have an Instagram as well, which is illumnarreiki. So you can find me there. And I do a number of one-on-one Reiki sessions. I also offer group meditations like the one you experienced up at Two Bunch. For now, I've only been doing those up at Two Bunch Palms out in Desert Hot Springs, but in the new year, I'm looking to expand that to be offering in more places in LA. So look out for updates there. Another thing that's in the works, dates are TBD, but I'll be holding in 2025 Chakra Healing Circle. So that'll be a 7-week group thing where people come together and each week will be focused on one chakra, where we'll dive a little deeper into what they mean. There'll be healings centered around those chakras. So that's something
Is that online?
I'm going to do it in person to begin with, but
In
maybe
LA?
in LA, yes.
Oh, fun. Well, I want to hear about that too. So that sounds
Yeah, so
great. Yeah.
when that's ready to be birthed, I'll share it with you, but I want people to know it's coming. I think that's it. Fun,
Beautiful.
exciting thing that's not out in the open yet too, but I'm going to be expanding into sound healing as well, which I'm really excited
Oh,
for.
that's great. Yeah, I was wondering if it works with other modalities.
Absolutely. Reiki
Yeah.
works in tandem with anything. It's a support. There's no conflict in that. It's just going to support whatever it is you're working with.
Oh my
Whether
gosh.
it's a spiritual
Amazing.
practice or a more practical isn't the word, but any more traditional practice Reiki can support.
Fantastic.
It's got
Fantastic.
no
Yeah, it
limit.
does seem to work well with the practical, just to close that thought. It may
Absolutely.
itself not be well, it may be practical actually.
I mean, I think it is,
Practical magic.
it's intrinsic. We
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
don't know about it or
Yeah.
we forgot. We're
Practical
learning
magic.
again.
We found our title. All right, darling. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jane. This was really lovely.